Thank you for joining us. This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Tim Mahoney.
Tim Mahoney, that's right. Guys, you did not hear wrong. We have a third host today. Tim, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. A little tired, but I'm good.
Who are you?
It's such an aggressive question.
Yeah,
the way you do it. I like it.
We have a third host, but who the fuck are you?
Do you know our original intro for guests used to be would be something to the effect of, Tim, you're on the show today. Tell our listeners why anybody would care what you're saying.
I don't really know why anyone would care. You guys kept me in a basement here for a year. You know, this is my first time on the podcast with you guys.
Well, the nice thing is you've usually been kept upstairs, and now you are in the basement.
Yeah.
But, it's just clearing
in our swanky recording studio.
So what got you into diesel? The famous Paul line right there, man.
What got me into diesel? I think just trucks in general and going fast, racing. I think I like to race stuff, Chris,
Well, I mean, our listeners, just trying to...
Yeah.
We're going to get into some stuff that's going to hold some credibility, and we want to prove your credibility. Okay. So, I know your history. I know the...
Give us your background.
So where did I start? Started with cars. Started with Subarus. That was the Pride and Joy originally. Swing back around to 2008-ish. The newest truck coming out, right? The 6.4 Power Stroke. Talked my dad into getting one of those for our trips across the country to Colorado. Probably 4,000 miles went by, and what do you know? You had the standard 6.4 Power Stroke issues. So me at the age of probably 15 years old was
a fresh age.
Ordering up my H&S Minimax and doing the whole thing to fix those problems, and then we were all downhill from there pretty much. I had a military Blazer, had LB7s, had it all, had an LML.
So fast forward from there, you linked up with Nick years ago through the forums and through family, friends, and mutual friends there.
Yeah, probably even before then. My uncle was a good friend of Nick's, dating probably 06, 07, before Nick was really even a company, and my uncle would do EFI Live stuff out of Florida, and anytime we had an issue up here, my uncle was from Crystal Lake as well, and that's how him and Nick kind of kindled there. And if we did have an issue, I'd go to Nick's house, and I remember the day I got my permit, I went out to Woodstock and actually swung by Nick's house on the way back. So this was 10 years ago now. And had him fix something with a glow plug module in the tune, and that it kind of all started from there. And I had a ProCharge Jeep when you guys were out in Union, Paul.
Sure.
That was, I think, the first time I met you. Put that on the dyno, and Nick just come out, check out the facility, and it grew from there. Had an LML that Nick tuned back, 2012, whenever we first tuned him.
2013, yeah.
It was one of the first ones Nick tuned on the dyno, I know, before he got his, and it was kind of always, you get a truck, and I was kind of notorious of you buy a truck and it's got 300 miles on it, and it's already tuned by Duramax tuner, and I always kind of helped out, and if there were shows or something to go to, Nick would ask if I'd want to drive across the country and kind of go hang out, and about a little over a year ago now, I officially joined the team, and been doing a little bit of tuning, been doing a lot of dyno stuff, been doing a little bit of R&D, some shows, some sales stuff, a little bit of everything. So.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so Tim's been a really big help strongly on the tuning and the dyno side with a lot of our R&D. When we did our soot accumulation video over at Diesel Insights, that was really a project that Tim had spearheaded. So he's been really integral to kind of pushing some of those projects forward. And that is one of the reasons that we have you on the show today. So we're going to talk a little bit later about a trip you just got back from. You mentioned getting back from Vegas, crying about a free vacation here. I don't know why. But first, Chris, I know you and I had a few things we want to talk about.
Yeah. So we'll start from the top. Every episode, we always talk about what's going on at the shop.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things that we decided to do this year for, our podcast listeners, customers from the shop, whatever, is we've done a deal of the month where it highlights a popular product, and we do a promo for that month with a discount. So for this month of November, it's the best month because that's my birthday month. Boom. We're doing ag tuning. So 10% off of ag tuning with the purchase of the Power Manager itself. So guys, something that's cool here is John Deere, Case IH, Versatile, New Holland, Caterpillar, Challenger, pretty much any of, the main pieces of ag, combines, tractors, sprayers, that kind of thing. We have the ability to upgrade it with a custom calibration, live tuning, similar to like what we do on the truck side of things with EFI Live EasyLink MM3. You get a power manager, we ship it to you. You're going to plug it into the diagnostic port, read the base file, email it in. And then we're going to modify that base file with a couple of uprates. Depending on that tractor, the power ranges, if you will. But we're running a 10% promo for the month of November. If you guys have any questions on that, feel free to let us know. You can email me directly, cemke@duramaxtuner.com. You can reach me directly, 815-568-7920, extension 2121. Or email Paul if you have, basic questions or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just please let us know. We'll do what we can to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited about the Power Manager. This is generally our most popular month to tune tractors, and we're doing a ton of them.
Combines,
tractors, combines.
Yep.
We're really getting into that point of the year where a lot of farmers are looking at doing tillage. So if you do tillage, you have some bigger equipment, and you need some more ponies out of it, we can help.
Or if you've been flooded and now the snow and the ice is all starting, you're trying to get done a little quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good option where you're not spending, a few $100,000 on a new piece of machinery. So
absolutely. One of the other things I wanted to talk about today, Chris, was a segment of videos we've been doing over on the YouTube channel for Duramax Tuner, which is Diesel Minute. Yeah. That's where we're taking vehicles and highlighting them and just doing a quick minute or so around that vehicle. Tim, your truck actually made it on there in one of our first kind of features for that. Mm-hmm. So we did your 2019 F-250 base model.
Yep.
I just
not the platinum. So
I just really like poking at Tim. It's pretty much junk.
I don't know how you don't have seat massagers, dude.
Yeah, it's garbage. I can barely even look at it. No, it's a really nice truck. The most recent one we did is our 800 horsepower Duramax Hummer. This is just a blast to drive. It's a lot of fun to look at. Yep. Check out the video. It's quick. It's a minute long, so it's not like it's going to take you forever. It's on our Instagram channel as well. It's also on Facebook. So anywhere you want to find that video, jump on and check it out. Make some really nice comments on YouTube about how much you like it. We really appreciate that. And then today we do, of course, have one of our favorite sponsors, WC Fab, who sponsors our From Facebook segment. I usually just pull a really short post that's easy to read.
Well, it's because you have reading issues.
You want to go there, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Go, what? You know what, Chris? Good call. Why don't you read today's From Facebook?
I don't have it. It's all you, man.
Don't worry, bro. I got you a copy. Here, Tim and I both have copies. Look at that. We got you. We got you.
It's all you. You already planned it.
Yeah. Good cover.
I'm terrible at
I don't know if people can hear me winking. All right. I will murder you.
Go on.
That's our From Facebook today. All right, this came from Bobby Robosini. Sure. Hey guys, love the podcast. Was wondering if I could get some insight on idling. I have an LML, and I was always told to let it run if you're in a store for a few minutes, but it's better to leave it. But is it better to run it leaving, say, for half an hour or even an hour? Curious what you guys think is excessive idle time and why it's bad and why shutting it off is beneficial and what ambient temps really matter. So we usually I jump on and try to answer people's questions within a day. But man, in our Facebook group, Diesel Performance Podcast Q&A, we'll talk about the name of that in just a moment. We're just getting more and more members. There's more and more people who are jumping on and answering questions really quickly.
I'm getting notified daily. Many followers, new additions to the page every day, which is awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, please, if you're a listener and you haven't jumped on yet, jump onto your Facebook, search for Diesel Performance Podcast Q&A group, request it, we'll approve you automatically. So Ronnie Sullivan came back, said, good question. I've also wondered the same thing. Further, it's my understanding that you should let the truck idle for at least 2 minutes to cool the turbo down before shutting it off. So if you run into the store for a minute, it seems more logical to let it idle, in my opinion. However, I'd like to hear from the experts. Bobby came back, said, so slow drive into the neighborhood at like 20 miles an hour is good enough to let it cool off after unloaded driving? And then we start getting some feedback here. So,
yeah,
I let the truck cool till it's under 450 degrees exhaust temps, but I've always had a power stroke. My 6.0 had a turbo timer on it that would idle the truck till the proper temp, then shut off automatically. I love that feature. Now I have a 16 power stroke with EasyLink. I just grab all my gear out of the truck, takes 30 seconds to a minute, and then it's usually cool enough to shut it down by that time. Ronnie came back, said, I'll have to see if my truck has a feature that shows exhaust temps. Depending on the year of the truck would answer your question there, Ronnie. Good rule of thumb is about 5 minutes to stop. Stays warm, no turbo cooldown issues. The issue with long periods of idling is wet stacking. Engines aren't hot enough at idle to fully combust. Short stops, especially when it's already hot, isn't going to hurt it much. If you want to leave it idling for a long time, though, throw a high idle switch in. I feel like this was one where when I got to it, I was like, okay, it's good to see what people think.
Yeah.
It's really good to hear what people's already established opinions of idling are. Yeah. Now, we've worked on a video with our producer Justin and Nick on turbo, on cold starts, and pretty much telling people, I think we titled that one, "You're cold starting your emissions-equipped diesel wrong." Yeah. And the reason is because we get a lot of this, what's the right temp and how hot should it be? And then hearing this on the shutdown. My rule of thumb is about 10 minutes of idle time is my limit. So I have let it go 20 minutes. If you look at what your factory settings are, most trucks with like remote start will let it idle for up to 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, right?
Is what I've seen in the past.
It'll vary a little bit there, but you can let it idle for about that amount of time. After that, I would call it excessive. So if I know I'm going to hit the half hour mark, I'm not going to let my vehicle idle that long if I have emissions equipment. I just won't do it. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I believe the biggest misconception out there, too, is people, if their truck is in regen or if they know the truck is regenning based on high idle, they believe that they can run into the store or they think they should leave it on. That's where I've run into the biggest issues is people want to leave their trucks on when they're in regen. And that's where I don't know where Nick stands on this or not, but my opinion is if the truck's in regen and you are not going to complete that regen, just turn the truck off and don't let it sit and idle there, because what'll happen in from what I've seen is it'll keep building soot and it'll get to a point where it won't even want to regen anymore.
I love this one. This is such a good point, Tim. I just talked to actually one of our employees here who said, he was letting his truck idle, and he said, it's in regen right now. I said, well, it's not in regen right now because you're not doing 30 miles an hour. Exactly. He's like, no, but the RPMs are way up. Yeah, the RPMs are up trying to preheat your DOC. Yeah. So it's building heat, but it's not to the point that it's actually hot enough to burn anything off. It's not dosing fuel. It's not actually getting to the heat it needs to be. So guys here, the idle is up, and they're like, it's in regen. I'll let it regen. No. Regen pauses anytime you're under 30 miles an hour. So there's no way for the truck to regen just sitting there.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, you'll build up soot, and that's the biggest. As far as wet stacking goes, I have not run into that problem ever with a diesel. There's plenty of guys in Canada who run their trucks 72 hours, 2 weeks at a time. They literally, I don't even know if they shut it off while they add fuel to the damn things. Like, there are guys in extreme cold weathers who let these trucks idle for excessive amounts of time. They're forced to based on their climate, right? The rest of us who aren't in those extreme conditions, there's no benefit to letting it idle. Like if your truck's new enough that you have emissions equipment, you probably could put a remote start in it if you don't already have one, number one, so you can get the cabin hot enough to get in and climb in it and drive. But there's no performance benefit. There's no active benefit to letting the truck idle for more than 10, 20 minutes. Chris, any thoughts on that? How long do you let your 15 come and sit?
5-10 minutes.
Really?
Like to warm up in the morning.
Okay.
Otherwise, a minute and a half, 2 minutes shut off. I'll let it idle while I fill it up. Otherwise, it doesn't stay idling.
Cool down with turbo timer. Cool down.
Minute and a half.
Minute and a half.
Yep.
Absolutely zero fucks given about cool down time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen too many premature failures on turbochargers.
From trucks, though? Because I know on cars it's a thing where you have such a smaller, compact...
Oil temperature is oil temperature, bearing temperature is bearing temperature. You have to think about that. Letting it cool down and not shotgunning it. A day here, day there is one thing, but the day here, multiplied over 10 years with 100, 200,000 miles on the turbocharger. I mean, we've seen trucks come in. There's a truck in the shop right now with 250,000 miles on it with the original turbocharger.
Yeah.
And the turbocharger's in great shape. And after talking to the customer, he stores the truck every winter. He's very adamant about, maintenance and things like that, and his startups and his shutdowns. So, when you look at things like that, there is a lot to be said. And again, one day here or one day there isn't going to kill you, but when that's your practice day in and day out, you are shortening the life of some of those components, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. If your goal is to have a super high mileage truck and you have something that's new now, or if you already have a high mileage truck and you're trying to get it to last, I could see that. I could understand that. Okay, guys, our other big sponsor here is Exergy Performance. God, the three of us, we've put Exergy Performance in everything.
Yeah.
Like literally every vehicle application that they have a product for, I think we have sold or helped a customer or used it ourselves. Yeah. But the one, Chris, you and I were both talking to the same customer the other day about a 10 millimeter CP4, and it just reminded me that we really haven't talked a lot about that product on this show.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that 10 mil CP4?
Well, I think, there's a lot of, it's a new product, right? Even though it's been available for a couple of years now, it's still kind of a newer product because everyone is still stuck on old technology, in my opinion. Old technology being CP3 conversions. CP3's great application for, especially, we're talking more specifically on the LML Duramax right now. Knowing that, there's all the crazy lawsuits going on for, the inferior
GM's getting
CP4,
sued, right? Yeah.
For the inferior CP4 pump from Bosch. But what it really boils down to is, fuel contaminants, that pump self-destructing, the regulator on the pump dispersing debris and goes through the high-pressure system.
Yeah, the MPROP screen gives way.
So a couple cool things Exergy has done is they offer an upgraded MPROP, which is like a reinforced netting per se. So if you were to get contaminated fuel, it's going to stop the fuel flow. It'll shut the truck down instead of dispersing and going through the high-pressure system. But then wait, there's more. They come up with a badass high-performance version of that pump to where you don't have to do a CP3 conversion, hack up a lot of the fuel lines and the electronics, the harness inside the engine valley. You can do a drop-in replacement pump that's robust and reliable, similar to the reliability of a CP3 pump, but have enough fuel volume to support about 750 horsepower. So when you price things out, the CP4 10 mil comes at a little bit better advantage compared to a 10 millimeter in a conversion kit. It's a cleaner install. It's a lot more of a simplistic approach, in my opinion, going about it. Now, before listeners start, giving their 2 cents, yes, this all comes into, RPM operation limitation. I mean, there's more things that go into it, but for the general guy who's looking to make, single turbo drop-in, maybe a twin turbo, looking to make that 600-700 horsepower mark, the 10 millimeter CP4 pump is honestly a force to be reckoned with, in my opinion.
Wildly agree. I think
we've got two of the guys here at the shop with these on their trucks. One is Mike's LML with our 67 on it, and the other one's our VP Jamie with a twin truck, and both have been flawless and fun to tune as well.
Yeah.
Not a pain in the ass.
Let's go back 3 years though, when Jason Worley had his white regular cab, which was one of the test beds for the version of
that
twin turbo
kit,
that we have, which had a 10 millimeter pump, and that was one of Exergy's original prototypes.
Yeah.
That truck got its ass kicked. That truck saw multiple winters, summers. That truck, Jason has recently sold off within the last 6 months. But that thing has been one of the most reliable, durable trucks I've honestly ever seen, and it's been consistent.
God, that's one of my favorite trucks.
It is. I know it's always been one of your favorite trucks, but when we talk to guys, one of the hardest things that I have when I have someone call in and ask questions is having an understanding of where they're coming from. Okay, because they read the forums, they listen to their buddies. The CP3 conversion sells itself because of the known issues in the general market.
Yeah, there's a lot of name recognition that goes with it,
there
right?
Is. But when we talk about, at the end of the day, myself, simplicity, ease of install, and reliability, I hate to say it. There's a lot of other products on the market. I'm not going to dispute that. But when we talk about what's turnkey, what's going to work, and it's been proven, it's really hard to look past the CP4, whether it's the improved pump or the 10 millimeter pump that Exergy offers.
Yeah, true story. All right, man. Well, Tim, the reason we brought you on the show is, as we mentioned earlier, to talk about SEMA. So you got to go to the SEMA show. man, the hard life of a tuner. You guys just sit around and fuck around with trucks all day and play on the dyno and text on your phones and go to SEMA. It's hard out there.
I mean, I'll tell you, over the last year of Tim working here, he's gotten a couple extra gray hairs with his beautiful flock of black hair, a couple missing hairs. I mean, dude, he's out here. He's living the life.
You forgot I was gone the weekend before this too, Paul. I wasn't around, so I've been.
Oh yeah. I forgot that you were out. You were out beating up
racing the
drag
company
racing
truck, yeah.
a company truck. Right. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
No, but hey, listen, I've been to the SEMA show before. I know how massive and overwhelming it can be. Was this your first time at SEMA?
Yeah, first time SEMA. First time I was in Vegas for more than 8 hours. So it's
Oh my God,
whole new experience for me.
Yeah,
So
growing up quick.
Did you come
Hard
back
little Timmy.
a little broker than when you got there? Or?
I messed up my foot a little bit. Josh had me walking down the strip, from the West Gate all the way to the Luxor. So
Quit playing.
But no gambling? No gambling?
No, I'm not a big gambler. You've known that. I'm not even a big drinker until I had to hang around with you guys. But,
I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, so no, I mean Vegas in his own was very cool. I've driven through there, but never spent a lot of time. Interesting, a lot of interesting characters down there. But SEMA is like home. You go to these events and you're walking around and I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of people there, and you're like, oh, those are the guys from Alligator. These are these guys. Like you know people there. It's home when you're going to these events and these shows and stuff like we do. And pretty much everyone here gets to go out and go to these shows. At least you used to, right, Paul?
Oh yeah.
You still know all the guys, but that's it. Yeah, and it was. I think I was there about 30 hours, which is a little bit tighter. But like we were racing at the King of the Streets event last weekend, so I didn't get to go down there any earlier. But I think 3 days would be a perfect trip to kind of go through all the halls and kind of see.
Yeah, I think when I did SEMA, I was there for 3 days, and my trip to Vegas before that was 7 days and 6 nights. So, yeah, that's way too long. Please, listeners, never go to Vegas for 7 days and 6 nights. It's insane.
What kind of bankroll did you have to have? Because you're a gambler and a drinker. So, like,
Chris, I'm
a drinker too. I'm not saying I'm not.
I went there and I went to Bible study every day. No, I did not.
Praying that you get some of your money back.
No, I didn't. Yeah, no. Yeah, it was much too long.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a long time there.
Yeah. There were like 6 of us who were all in our early 20s.
Oh, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah,
that sounds like we'll talk about that more.
It was
after
wild.
this.
Yeah, off air. No, but when I did SEMA, I was there for 3 days, and I'll tell you what, you would have to be trucking to even make it through all of SEMA. Now, if you wanted to do all of the trucks, I think you could do that in 3 days.
Yeah.
But that was the one thing that blew me away about SEMA is, of course, I know it's all of automotive, but when I say all of automotive, I mean everything that has ever had wheels and an engine put on it is at SEMA.
Well, I mean, now you look at it like this. Timmy went there partially as a spectator, but there was business that he had to, conduct. So 30 hours, I mean, I'm surprised with the business you were able to conduct. I mean, what did that 30 hours look like? You land, you're in Vegas. What were you able to accomplish there?
Yeah, so the first day I flew out, I guess would be Wednesday morning. Flew out here, 8. Time change help. You're there at 10:30. Cab driver took me on the nice scenic tour, so my cab fare was a $32 fare than the $15 fare. But
that dude was a hustler.
Yeah, exactly. But got to the hotel, met up with Josh. Josh had been down there, and he had kind of already been through and seen a lot of the event. And again, I knew that I was there for a couple purposes, and that was it. So what I saw walking around was, you could see, but we were there for a couple reasons. So Wednesday was our day to kind of find the vendors we needed to go talk to. SEMA actually has a very cool app where you can just punch in the vendor's name and it'll give you a good idea where you're going.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There are a couple vendors. There's also the Sands Expo, I believe it's called, that goes on at the same time. Different expo. That's not in the same building as SEMA. So don't confuse that because we were looking for a couple different vendors in the other one. But yeah, so first day one was kind of just, meet people, make the rounds, talk to people who you don't necessarily, the phone conversations aren't the same as, the face-to-face conversation. So got to walk around and see the vendors and talk to a couple of guys I don't think, the company in general has talked to in a while. Stopped over by banks, stopped at a couple places and it was all in all good. The first day was just kind of make the rounds. And the second day was we were there for business, and that was about it.
That's awesome, man. Okay. What were some of the cool trucks you saw?
You had Matt Chambers' truck there, which we were involved of.
Operation Snowflake.
Yep, Operation Snowflake at UCC. His truck was there with his Can-Am on top of it in the Premier booth.
For the listeners, that's a 18 Ram twin turbo, missions equipped.
Yeah, modified fuel too.
Yeah. So that truck was there in the Premier booth. Didn't see those guys around there. They were kind of walking around. Roxor was there in full effect, and we've been really getting involved in the Roxor stuff there. And me and Josh were over by the Roxor booth, and kind of giggling at each other, like, "Did you tell them we made 200 horsepower with this thing?" And but they had some very cool Roxors. They had a booth inside, booth outside. I mean, they were there in full effect. There's a big push on the UTV market for the Roxor stuff right now.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, man.
Other than that, I mean, if there's so many trucks there, just anything you can think about, it's there. The lift kits, everything's there.
That is, I was there. God, it just came up on my feed. I want to say it was 3 years ago, maybe 4. But at any rate, I will say when I was there, every truck we saw was lifted to the sky. I mean, I have a picture of my wife standing up with a bumper over her head.
Oh wow!
Like, and that was the one of the tallest lifts, but that was normal. Like all of the trucks were just. If it was a diesel truck and it was at SEMA that year, it seemed like they had to just lift it to the sky.
No kidding.
There was not a lot of, when I was there was not a lot of high horsepower diesel trucks like we would think about. They're like, no, I didn't see a single diesel race truck there or sled pull truck there. Rat rods were real big that year. When I was there, they still like a big thing, the old rust buckets with the 12 valve sticking out.
Yeah, and like welder ups trucks.
Welder up,
and those guys are usually driving that truck around.
Oh, well, they're from Vegas too.
Right,
So a lot of that style stuff. A good mix of everything, really.
I will say it was so indulgent to be able to walk around and look at all of the ridiculous supercars that are there too. Yeah. I mean, listen, like we all love the diesel trucks. We all know that's what through our blood. But man, when you get to actually get up close on some of those, like the Lambos, the Ferraris, you know what I mean, the high-end Mercedes, this type of shit, things you're never going to see again on the road, like a Koenigsegg or whatever.
Yeah.
It was.
That's the badass shit.
It was memorable. I'm not gonna lie.
A big push on electric this year.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Ford and GM actually coming out with retrofit kits for electric.
That's so cool.
I don't know too much about it other than what Nick would intrigue me on as far as Nick's a big fan of electric, obviously.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff there. He had I think it was GM had a 400 watt option and Ford had like an 800 watt option, and it's pretty much 1,000 horsepower, electric conversion setups. So,
yeah.
Not that I know a ton about that stuff, but it's very cool to see the industry come around, to that way. So.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I think that's going to be one of the big pushes of the future, is seeing electric vehicles and more hybrids and things like that actually have a potential for power. I think we're going to see that as a part of the performance community.
I think just over the, again, what topic we're going to be getting into, emission standards and things like that. We've seen over the last, 5 years, how much of a turn that's taken. And an electric vehicle wasn't as accepting 5 years ago as it is now. So what's the next 5 years or 10 years look like?
Right.
It's just crazy to see how everything comes full circle.
Well, speaking of why you were there, Tim, hey, walking around, shaking hands, good job. But my understanding is you were there to cover some very important topics, or to be a part of the discussion on some very important topics. And that had to do with the EPA and CARB and specifically enforcement.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What does that scene look like right now? And maybe specifically just what does it look like for a business owner in diesel performance? What does that EPA and CARB enforcement really look like?
Yeah. And ironically, if they would have known, they probably would have flip-flopped meetings a little bit. But the first meeting we were there for, and these were both essentially invite-only meeting. But if you're a business owner, and especially the diesel industry, you were there. The CARB meeting was a little bit more of everyone in industry. EO's obviously a big push right now. So first meeting Thursday morning was the one of the guys jokingly call it coffee with CARB, but it was just kind of like a CARB meeting, and they were out to give pretty much what they're doing and what they're doing to not only what they're doing to help the industry, making the EO process easier and easier to obtain, and their plan for the future.
For our listeners, real quick, EO, so EO numbers that are CARB
Carb approved, yeah.
Carb approved
Yeah, so once you get CARB approved, they issue an EO number, and that EO number is accepted by the EPA as well. Because these are, and that's a good point, Chris. We should separate some of this jargon here. The EPA is federal, CARB is California. You could get 49 state EPA legal, and CARB could tell you to go pound sand. But if you go to CARB, if you go to California and get your EO number, the EPA accepts it.
Yeah.
So the true standard is 49 state, but the like absolute best standard is really from CARB.
Yeah, and we've I'm sorry I didn't explain that very well, but we've been involved in this for probably the last year or two here now, and dealing with CARB, and it's time consuming, Paul. It really is. They give you a test letter once you filled out the application and tell them what you want to do. They give you a test letter for 6 months. You have 6 months to test that vehicle and get them the results they need, and it takes a little bit longer than 6 months. You got to go back and forth with them a little bit, but that was pretty much. They'll get people in there who wanna certify an air filter for 100 trucks, 100 different model trucks, and that's where it gets complicated because every truck's a little bit different, and they're trying to simplify the process of keep it to one RPO, keep it to a model year, keep it to say the LML, and we'll get this done and we'll get it through for you. And a lot of just factory replacement stuff. And CARB was very upfront and pretty much saying, like, if you have a factory replacement part, all you need to do is show us what you're doing and why you did it. And it's a very simple process. You usually don't have to do any tailpipe testing, anything like that.
Yeah.
SEMA Garage, again, big shout out to those guys for kind of taking this on and bringing everyone together with this, because they hosted both of these events, kind of helped with the Q&A and stuff there. So first one was pretty straightforward. A lot of questions about what's up and coming and how we can not only get an EO number, but how when you go for smog, how the EO and testing and all that will apply to get you in and out of smog faster. So very good insight there. Over the next year or two, big things coming there. They have open workshops and stuff. You guys can tune in. I know they're going to put their PowerPoint presentation up sometime this next week, so everyone can kind of take a look and see what's going on there. So left there, got a little bit of lunch, ran down to the sand show, which was I don't want to say it was a mistake, but it was a push to haul kind of back to the middle of town and then get back. Josh and I wound up doing a little bit of running. That's probably where I hurt my foot to get back, but we made it back. So the second meeting was very, very intriguing, definitely worth the trip. So this was the EPA meeting, I would call it. You basically had SEMA Garage's attorney up on stage running the meeting, and then you had CARB, you had the guys from SEMA there, SEMA Garage, and then you had the EPA there too. So 3 people who, to my knowledge, the way it's been presented in the industry, supposedly don't get along at all, So the irony kind of started there, and the biggest push on social media right now is racing products, right? The lack of racing products, and EPA and CARB, they're not letting us race anymore. Is tuning dead? Is performance dead? I mean, if you guys want to talk about that, I mean, that's the big question right now, right?
Yeah, so I think it's been pretty interesting. Chris, you've been seeing a lot of this too. So I think we can talk about it openly, and I don't think we're being offensive by just being honest about what we've seen. So we've seen Corey, and we've seen some other guys out in the industry saying racing is dead. And then it's interesting to me when you hear about what are the restrictions for qualifying as a race vehicle. There's a lot of rumors right now saying you have to be tube and chassis only. You could not take a street vehicle and convert it to a race only vehicle. I think this is also being said with a certain blind eye to the fact that just because you sled pull once a year does not mean you have a race truck.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a big difference between a race vehicle and a vehicle that you go race.
Well, I mean, let's just paint a picture here fast. Up until, this last social media explosion, if you will, okay, guys were openly, we've all known, the industry's known about EPA, known about CARB, known about these things, but you could still openly go on most major mail orders, most major tuners' websites, and buy quote-unquote off-road use tuning.
Yeah.
And it's not that. It's never going to be shut down. It's never this. It's never that. Remember when Trump got elected?
Oh, yeah.
He's shutting the EPA down. We're done.
Yeah.
If anything, cut funding, and what happened to the EPA? They became more hungry, right? So fast forward a little bit of time. Now here we are. Tuning's dead. Upgrading your vehicle's dead. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it.
Yeah.
The thing that we have to paint a picture on here is that there were a couple of tuners or a couple of companies, if you will, that had been going through this back and forth stuff, and then they're painting a picture on what they have been dealing with and where they see things going because of their experience. But that's not necessarily the whole picture here.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
No, I was definitely. I walked into that meeting. I didn't know what to expect. Jamie had been to a couple before, and me and Josh kind of walked in, and their presentation and everything is. They start with their presentation and what they're out there to do, and then the whole, I'd say, second hour and a half was all Q&A, and that's where stuff really got interesting. And even in their first presentation is, they support racing. They support the racing industry. They support the performance industry. And this is both CARB and the EPA saying this. And it's not just tube chassis vehicles like what's out there right now. You can take a one standard vehicle and convert it to a race-only vehicle. And it's just how you go about that. First off, don't plate it. Don't insure it. Don't drive it on the street. Very simple things. And the other side of it is if it's a dedicated sled pull truck, if it's a dedicated drag truck, it's probably going to have a cage. It's probably going to have different tires. They're all for that. They want you to race. They want you to be involved in the industry. You just can't drive it home on the street.
Right.
You got a trailer at home. And if you can follow those rules, you're good, man. They're going to leave you alone.
Right. Which, if we're being honest, fits a very small percentage of the guys who are out there buying Delete tunes, say, a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
The average guy buying a Delete tune a year ago was deleting his truck, filling out a form saying, yeah, I'm going to follow the rules,
right.
and then drove it on the road. And we all knew that that's exactly what was happening.
It's probably less than 1%.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Let's just be realistic.
And we were just talking about this. Even in our shop, we're Duramax tuner. We have built dedicated competition vehicles, but not many.
No. Yeah.
Not many that weren't our own.
No.
There's not many independent enthusiasts who go out there and build dedicated race vehicles. We love it when they do, and we love the guys who do it, whether they're building it in their garage or they're building it at a shop or our shop. That's awesome, man. Like, we love to see this race industry live, but you got to be real about, again, what's a race vehicle and what's a vehicle that you go race in.
Yeah. And then that's where the dual purpose comes in. And you can't have an emissions defeating device on a dual purpose vehicle. It's either on road or it's for racing. If you want to race your off-road vehicle, or if you want to race your on-road vehicle, I'm sorry, that's okay. But it needs to either pass 49 state, or if you're CARB certified, if you have an EO, you're good to go do whatever.
Yeah.
It's very simple. And they really leaned on the whole off-road only and the whole checkbox, and they are really against the off-road only. Obviously their whole presentation, right? They pull up, they got a delete pipe up there, and the good old H&S Minimax there, and like that's their whole thing. And they're just done with people's bullshit and behind it. And
it was a very thin veil.
Yeah.
It was a very thin veil to hide, to try to claim a disclaimer for everyone involved,
So,
for everyone.
Rightfully
they
so.
are again, and this goes back to the whole racing is dead thing. No, you can manufacture race parts, but you have to be reasonable about who you're selling them to and what you're using them on. And it's very, to me, it's kind of common sense, but I guess people like to bend the rules. And the reason why they don't like the off-road stuff too, Paul, is they're getting into the ag stuff too.
It's so funny you say that. I had a quick story about the ag stuff with the EPA. We had some contacts up in, I'll keep it vague and just say in the Midwest, who actually said they have been contacted by the EPA over specifically deleting tractors. They're out there, man. They see it. You know what I mean? It's not. There's no clever way to get around it.
You're not safe off road. If you're using it for ag, you're using it for farming. If it came in with emissions equipment, it's got to stay on there.
That's it.
Again, if you have racers, if you're out racing them, they really don't care. If it's a dedicated race vehicle, they don't care. CARB doesn't care. They'll be very upfront with you. They want you to go ahead.
Because razors don't come with any emissions equipment, right?
No,
I mean, that's
no.
a small enough engine to where it doesn't even hit the tier model.
Yeah. So, but like our Roxor and stuff, it's got an EGR on it, and if it's gonna be, I'd say even a trail driven vehicle out there. If you're not in competition with it, just leave it on there. You know? So that's pretty much, the gist of it, and people asking about parts and, well, who's liable, right, Paul? Is it the people who make the parts? Is it the people who make the tuning? Is it the people who are selling it? Well,
or the owners. Are they going to start coming and cracking down on actual truck owners?
They could, and the law states they could, and they even said that's not a practical way for them to go after this.
Right.
Basically, you're liable for making the product, and you're liable for selling it if you know that you're selling so many of them that aren't, you can only sell so many race products. Like we said, maybe 1% of people are actually using these products for racing. And it's like, if you sold or 10 trucks a year or whatever the number is, and they don't have a number, so it's a gray area. But again, be reasonable. When you're selling 300,000 EGR kits a year,
that's a lot of race vehicles.
Yeah,
No, man. All trucks made from 2004 to 2008 are now race vehicles.
Yeah. And a statistic that he brought up that it kind of does open your eyes to it is, obviously you have the different tiers of emissions and stuff, and I don't know specific off the top of my head, but basically if you take like a 17 and 19 Power Stroke and you delete it, and mind you, this is probably worst case scenario, not only do you go back to tier 1 emissions, but you're basically it's like driving one deleted truck of that model year is like driving 300 compliant trucks on the road. That it really
of the same model year.
Of the same model year.
Yeah, as far as like the PPM that they would put out. So that's really eye-opening, because I would also assume that what they're saying is that if you ran our calibration, you ran our stock calibration, you turned all the emissions off, this is what you would get.
Yeah.
That's how much emissions equipment reduces the amount of pollution. Now, listen, there's people out there who love to argue about if pollution is really bad.
That's not this podcast.
If any of that stuff is exactly. We're not going to get into that. We are going to go under the assumption pollution is bad, and following the law to keep our company afloat, our people employed, and our customers happy is good.
Yeah.
So that's our baseline for all of this. Tim, that's really interesting, man. What a wild trip to SEMA. You did Vegas the most boring way.
I did.
Think of how much you covered in 30 hours.
Yeah.
Literally, so you got there Wednesday morning and then left Thursday night.
Yeah,
that sounds like a blast.
I took the,
Yeah.
Now I know why
if you
you
and
didn't
I
want-
were doing it in 30 hours and
now-
not doing meetings, yes, that would be a blast.
Now I know why when I said I wanted to go, Nick and Jamie both looked at me and laughed. I get it. I wouldn't be here today. Just
Yeah, true story.
I came in a little late. We're all right. But yeah, it was. I mean, just to wrap it up. I mean, the meeting was very eye opening. It's nice to see all those guys up on stage working together, and it's nice to show that. I mean, the Q&A that went on for an hour, it shows these guys really care about the industry, and the guys that maybe they did sell these products in the past, maybe they did use them in the past, they want to comply. They want to do what's right, and they're looking for the rules, and everyone's trying to find the rules to abide by,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it goes back to, if you got to ask yourself, hey, is this a good idea? It's probably the wrong idea,
I like it.
I think what you just touched on there. The guys on the panel, the guys in that meeting, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they might have been selling those products.
Yeah.
Right. But now, fast forward 5-10 years in the moment, what the future looks like.
Some of them are still selling them. I'm just playing around. Nobody's breaking the rules.
You know what? Whatever. It is what it is. But time has progressed. Data has been collected. Things are moving in a forward motion. So you can't dwell on, oh well, you did this a couple years ago. All right. Well, now I'm doing this. Now we're doing this.
Yeah, I think we're at the point now that I think most companies and we're even seeing truck owners are thinking about what can I do? I like that point, because I know I just talked to a guy on Facebook the other day who messaged in and said, hey, I've had my truck for 6 months. I was going to get it deleted, but now that doesn't seem practical. What are my options? And people are starting to think, what are my options? And as long as there's options out there to go fast and have fun, that's what we're into. I mean, that's what makes this industry.
Being a phone jockey day in and day out, you get these guys that call in, and the two things that
Humble
really
brag, bro. We get it. You got a phone. Okay.
Right. Two. Can't modify my truck. EPA doesn't want me to have fun. Like, I'm so overhearing that. It's not even
Racing's
funny.
dead.
Like, I'm so tired of hearing that. It's just, it is what it is. And then, what the second question is, like, what is out there? What is available? Just the more of that educated, style question. At the end of the day, what we are dealing with right now is an industry that is maturing.
Yeah.
And that, that's the bigger picture here that I think, any of our listeners, as this podcast, someone listens to it 5 years from now, 4 years from now, the maturity. It's maturing. That's what we're in the movement of right now. That's been the way for the last few years, and it's going to continue to evolve into, whatever the future holds.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited on a couple reasons why. We get to push this now new industry, I would call it. We get to push these products, and I think we're going to. We have a couple plans in the near future, a couple competitions that we really want to lean hard on the new industry and emissions equipment and pushing it. But it answers some questions first. It doesn't answer all of them, but it's no secret we've kind of walked on eggshells on certain things, especially with what we once called like the UCC truck. Like, can we even take it out to a pole? It's not a tube chassis truck. Can we take it? Are we going to get in trouble? Yeah. It's just nice to know that we can get back to those projects and get them on the dyno and it's a caged race truck. We can take it out. We can pull it. We did once this year. That's
just, as long as we're trailering it, it doesn't matter. Which is nice to know that it can be sitting in our shop. We can do what we so choose with it, and it's not going to hurt us.
So it can do the thing it's done for 3 years now, and it can
collect dust and sit. And fuck yeah!
And cost
we
money.
know. I'm just laughing because that I love that truck. I'd love to see it run twice.
Humble low bro, low blow bro.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on and helping us out today and talking to the listeners about what we can expect going forward in the diesel performance industry.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Did you guys talk about me getting my ass kicked last week?
No, we haven't brought it up. We don't need to do that.
Okay.
You're on a high note. We'll leave it there.
All right. Cool.
No. Tim, do you want to talk about King of the Streets?
I mean, I don't mind talking about getting my ass kicked. I have fun getting my ass kicked. It's competition, that goes back to
you got your
racing.
ass kicked, but everyone kept noting that was the most consistent truck.
Yeah, no, we got a good vibe from it. So
driver mod,
I don't know.
I'm just saying, between you two, who has more wins in the same truck?
Oh, me.
Sled pulling him, definitely. I'm not a sled puller. That was
listen to you be very specific. If you have to section off your wins or your losses, you lost.
Yeah, hold on, I just want to point out something. When I had the car, multiple times we'd be at the track. He could drive the fuck out of my car, launch that son of a bitch, do whatever. I could never figure it out. So driver mod, him all day.
Yeah.
Sled pulling, man, that was my shit.
Well, give us a rundown. As long as we're on it, give us a rundown. What is King of the Streets?
King of the Streets, it's a 3-day event. It's a 8th-mile drag race. Kind of sucked on that because you got to follow rules. Rules kind of suck, Paul. So we didn't have a cage in the truck. So we were
right
limited.
after this whole podcast.
What are you talking about?
Dude, why are you contradicting yourself, man?
Hey, man, it's an 06 Dodge. We're good to go, okay? So anyways, we didn't have a cage. So, maybe look into talking to Jason this winter about putting a little roll bar in there. But so the first part.
Get the fuck out of here.
We are one that goes in and out. Like,
up.
in and out.
Little bolt-in roll bar.
Dude, who are you? It's not coming out of your budget.
No.
So anyways, you got an 8th-mile drag race, first day. We actually placed well. I was looking at it with Justin today. We got 7th out of like 23 trucks. And there was trucks in there going 620s, 16s.
It's the top half.
The 8th.
Fuck yeah, man.
We were doing good there. And then the second day was the dyno, where we also got our ass kicked.
Was there any lower power level trucks?
There were, but I like to compete. Chris, I like to compete.
Just to point it out. You literally brought a knife to a gunfight. You brought a 930 horse truck when motherfuckers were breaking 2,000.
Yeah.
But it was fun. So you do the 8th-mile drag race, you do the dyno, and then the second day is where this truck is built to shine, even 1,000 horse less than everyone else. It's a 200-foot dirt drag, which is a little short for what we are used to.
200.
Yeah, we usually get 300 feet, right? Everywhere up here.
Unless Tim's pulling.
Yeah,
the track was perfect for him.
Yeah. So, but it was an actual tree and it was pro tree, Okay. So I got my ass kicked enough up here on the street that I learned how to cut a light finally.
Yeah,
so
right.
I had to get that dust off the old boots and start cutting the light and. Going up against these trucks, and so we actually got the second fastest time in the dirt drags and placed third. Greg A wound up knocking me out in the semifinals, and then he wound up going to beat Levon, who's the
king of diesel competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So we ran faster than him in the dirt with a baby little truck, but
little guy,
he kicks ass, man. He's those guys are a class act, all those guys. So and then after you're done dirt dragging, you hook up to a sled and you do actually 2 sled pull heats. And the truck, I think it was 8th or 9th then again. We placed middle in the pack. We made all the events. I didn't touch a clamp. I hung some weight. I added tire pressure. When I'm saying I hung weight, I hung 300 pounds. There were guys out there hanging 1,000 pounds, adding rear wheels. It was
there was
nuts.
a lot of dual conversions.
Yeah.
People want to win, man.
And then the other part to that event is a 100-mile street cruise.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting a lot of these trucks to make it. You think 2,000 horsepower truck, how is that going to make a street cruise? Trucks broke during the competition. A lot of guys didn't make it, but no one broke down on the street cruise. It was 2 hours and 4 minutes, 104 miles. Our guy Justin's walking in here now, but he was there with me, and it was a good time, man. I had a lot of fun. Thanks, Sarah, for putting on the event. I think it's a different style competition to UCC. It really You try and get away from the 2,000 and 3,000 horsepower stuff, but it also, again, it goes back to pushing the industry because 5 years ago was 1,000 horsepower truck was quick, and now it's you guys got 06, 07 Dodges making 2,000 horsepower driving around the street.
Doesn't the winner of this competition get a spot at UCC?
They do. So no joke, Levon in Jersey's truck, he's probably going to be at UCC with it. So. And just so you guys know, they did this in total fire punk fashion. Drag raced it, blew it up on the dyno, took it home that night. They were down at D&J or however you pronounce it, and rebuilt the motor overnight, dropped a sleeve, did it all, put the motor back together, oil leak, pulled the trans out, put it back together. We did the street cruise. We woke up, and it was the day time changed, luckily, so we got an extra hour of sleep. We woke up at 4:45. You had to be on the scales, weighed in, ready to go at, I forget, 6 a.m. or something. And these guys pull up, none of them have slept. They got the truck on the gooseneck, and then they proceed to unload it and put 1,500 pounds of weight into the bed because whatever you pulled with, you had to have that on the cruise with you. So, they did it in the fire punk fashion, and they did really well. So second, I think it was 2nd through 5th or 2nd through 6th actually all got the same amount of points. So Levon got first, and then the other they did get second, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they actually all tied for points. I think we were 7th in points ranking and 9th overall in the event. We did 6th in point ranking. For a little truck, we did super well. This was the truck me and Chris pulled in. I obviously didn't do as good as Chris this year in the work stock class, but this is our little 67. And then I called Jason, and he sent me over their little Stocker or S400 over Stocker kit. And so it's obviously S4, it's supposed to be an S400 over a 67. And then, of course, we only had a S488 SXE to throw over it, so we had to do that. And the truck's had hundreds and a 12 mil from Exergy for years now. It's probably a 4-year-old tired setup, but to crank out 930 on a dyno like that, we put the truck together 3 days before. Yeah. It was.
I think a lot of our listeners, prior customers, future customers, not our customers, that's cool too. Just because you have a truck that makes a power number doesn't mean you're going to, go to a competition and win. And I think one of the key recipes for the Fire Punk crew and Levon to do as well as they do is they have a driver mod. Yeah. Levon is a very good driver. He's seasoned. He's proven it years ago in DPC, UCC, King of the Streets, amongst the ODSS, you name it. And, they have the recipe, right? The truck, the suspension, the power, the team, the driver, all these things. And then, we come up with a truck that was a work stock puller that we just decided to throw a compound setup on, and you're hedging towards the top of the pack. And a truck that never broke, you never had to touch. 99% of the guys out there had to do something to their truck, but their truck also made at least 400 to 500 horsepower more. Yeah. You were probably one of the lowest horsepowered 5.9 Cummins out of the fleet. I probably guarantee that.
Yeah. Oh, and these, they all these guys love the truck. They're like, wow, this is a street truck. This is what it's about, and definitely when we got in the dirt, those guys were even on the 8th mile track because it would. The truck will cut like a 14860 or a 15460 pretty consistently. It'll light up on the tree. It doesn't need spray or anything. And we beat a lot of the faster trucks. It's just we couldn't legally go that fast because of the cage. But the truck was no joke. A lot of people were very impressed with it, and it's nice to take a simple project out there like that. me and Justin just kind of drove out there, a couple of my buddies, and we hung some weight, changed some tires, and we drove it to and from the hotel. It was 20 degrees out. Truck's got, no grid heater on it, fires right up.
The big thing I want to take away from this whole story is you don't need to have the highest horsepower vehicle to be a force to be reckoned with at a contest or at the drag strip or at the sled pull.
Yeah.
There is more than just the truck making a number.
Yeah.
So
it was fun. It was a good time. Not a lot of sleep, but it was a good time.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for sharing. Well, guys, I think that wraps it up for today. I'm Paul Wilson.
Chris Hemke.
Tim Mahoney.
Thanks for listening.
I love you, Paul.